Union Buzz. And tonight, Union Buzz is doing a special. And our special is with the sheriff of San Francisco, Sheriff Ross Mercarini. Tammy, what do you think about this special?
Well, first of all, we just want to welcome everybody. It's the fifth Friday, and usually our shows are only on the first and third Friday. So we'll be back next week, August 7th, and also August 21st. But we're really excited tonight because we're going to have our former District 5 supervisor, Ross Mercarini, on, along with, now he's our current sheriff. He's doing a fabulous job, and we're going to talk to him about the sheriff's role and the sheriff's office and what's going on with the sheriff's department this year. So we're very excited to have him on, and I'm very excited to be doing this special.
Right.
We're live. It's July 31st. You can call in at 415-861-6648. Again, 415-861-6648.
Okay, now let's get back to being host, okay?
Yes.
You gave your spiel for the sheriff, all right? So, tonight, the hosts are, on this Union Bus special, Tammy Bryant, a member of Service Employees International Union, that's SEIU, Local 10 to 1. She's a shop steward and a member. Are you going to the convention this year?
I'm an alternate only.
Okay, cool. My name is Carl Bryant, and I am a member of the National Association of Letter Carriers. In other words, I carried mail for the Postal Service and delivered it too. And
ever since you retired, the service has gone down exponentially. I can tell it's because you're not there anymore.
They don't want that. They don't want to hear that. They know that's BS.
I tried.
Anyway, so tonight I'm going to give a shout out to all those deputies out there of the sheriff. That's number one. Number two, I'm going to give a shout out to all of the veterans out there at Fort Miley. And number three, I'm going to give a shout out to all of the letter carriers who have to carry mail this weekend, like Saturday. I'm retired. I love it. Okay. Go ahead. Give your shout outs to whoever.
So I want to give a shout out to all the members of SEIU 1021 and all the hardworking city employees. I know the city's doing a lot of hiring right now, so you should check out the job announcements if you also want to work for the city and be a member of SEIU 1021.
So, we are going to give you the telephone number again, and that's 415-861-6648. And this is a little sideline from our normal show. And while we're waiting for the guest to come, his wife, what's her name?
Eliana Lopez?
Eliana. Yeah, she has a one-woman show, and it's not playing right now at the theaters, is it?
It's coming back on August 21st.
So why don't you talk about
Okay,
that?
well, we'll give a shout out to Eliana Lopez, Carolina, and Alfonso. They're the trio that are producing her one-woman show, What is the Scandal? And we all knew that Eliana was an actress and experienced and hardworking actress in Venezuela. But I don't think any of us really had a chance to see her work until we saw her one-woman show. It was written and directed by her brother, produced by her sister-in-law, and it's an amazing production. And it will be coming to the Victoria Theater on August 21st, and it's going to be through, I think, September 6th. But we'll have 2 more shows to announce it. But we wanted to give a shout-out to Eliana and her show. And now we have our special guest here.
Yes. Now,
Eliana who?
we'd like to introduce the sheriff here, Sheriff Ross Mercarini, and tonight with our special here at SF Commons. Telephone number is 415-861-6648. Now that the sheriff is here, we're going to let him do a little campaign speech, and then you can call in and ask the sheriff anything you want. Is that right, Sheriff?
Anything? I didn't even know we were doing call-ins.
Oh, yes, it's a live call.
Oh, my
It's a
God.
live call-in show.
Anything you want. Anything you want.
Anything you want, huh? Okay. The sheriff's here. I want everybody out there in the viewing audience, 6648. Chef gave you a wave. Now we are going to go.
And of course, we want to really thank
Well,
you for coming in on our show and our
right.
special tonight.
Yes.
And
I'm just delighted I made it here on time.
Yeah.
we are too, actually.
Yeah, for the traffic.
Oh.
Let's talk about traffic in San Francisco.
Yeah.
What can you do about that, Sheriff?
I can do a lot about it. I can do a lot about it, actually. You want to call in about traffic? I want to talk about traffic, too.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. So we're going to do.
So just to remind people, the call-in number is on the screen. It's 415-861-6648. We also have information about Sheriff Mercarimi's campaign. It's www.rossmysheriff.com. So you can always go to the website for more information. But welcome and thank you for coming.
Yes,
and
thank you very much.
I know
for
we
coming.
have questions and you have answers.
It's
No,
a privilege to be with the both of you. I always love hanging out and talking with you. You know, I think that you really raised the bar about the both of you as being just really good, caring San Franciscans. We knew that when we worked together when I was a supervisor in District 5, and I know that you apply that same passion citywide. And so it's nice to be with you again.
Oh,
Thank
great.
you.
Well, great.
Thank you. Oh, and we have a call already.
We do?
Yeah, looks
See
like
that?
we have a
Let's see.
call.
Oh, we do have a
We
call.
do have a call.
Jeez,
I
that
bet
was
you
quick.
it's either the Mayor or the Chronicle.
Oh, okay. Because they've been trying to get to you. You're so
Hello?
elusive.
Or their proxy. Maybe.
Hello?
I don't
Hello?
know.
Hello? Hello? Can you speak up?
Hello.
Hi.
I'm just calling in.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
on the air, and
You're on there. Can you give us a question? The sheriff would like to hear it.
Good evening.
Yeah, I was wondering how they could go after you on national TV the way they did, and they accused you of being an abusive husband. And I think that when I see you and your wife together, I think that they should at least apologize or something to you. And to see you on our TV tonight in a different light. I mean, you're the shining light of our city.
Wow.
Wow.
well, thank
And
you.
I really appreciate having a sheriff like you.
It's been a
You
hell
know,
of a
the
week,
badge
so I can't
cams
tell you
and
how much I
everything.
appreciate that.
With the badge cams and everything, revealing everything, and having them come after you the way they did. You know, we have no FBI. We have no FBI.
That's true.
They are not assisting us in any way, shape, or form. And we need the help from the FBI. This is very, very sad to see somebody die. I was almost exterminated in a county jail in Salinas
Oh.
by the sheriff,
Well.
by the police department, by the courts. You know, I believe that this is a total cover-up, that what they did to me.
Well.
And I thank you for trying to get these things revealed, the way the jails are being run. I thank you.
Well.
I just let it go at that. You know who I am? I'm the one who predicts things on TV.
Oh,
well,
okay.
Very good, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your call,
compliments.
because we
Yeah.
definitely
Thank you,
want
Ross.
to talk about the accountability,
All right.
and I
Yes,
guess we
I-
can jump right into that question.
I
About
really
account-
appreciate you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Okay, now.
Well, he had me at Shining Light, so
Oh,
thank you for the compliment. And you know, I always am very, I think, candid, and I try to be pragmatic, but I'm candid with my remarks as I see how things are in our local criminal justice system and where I think things are going in the direction for San Francisco overall. And I have concerns. I'm passionate about this city. I love this city. But there's been significant changes over the last several years. I think that correspond with the administration of Ed Lee. I don't believe it's just Ed Lee who's in power. I believe that there's a number of Svengalis, people behind the curtain, who are really pushing the city in a direction that they know that doesn't sit well with me, and that in my lane as being sheriff, while they may think that that's not a very significant lane, being sheriff over a well-known liberal that has a progressive reputation, but not so progressive these days, and see the impacts to people that are in the criminal justice system, and then to be concerned about what happens to those people after they leave the criminal justice system, is emblematic of a changing city and their inability to be able to stay and cope in being in San Francisco because of it's a changing city. And I think it's important that we are upfront about what those changes are, the upsides and the downsides about them. And that's what I try to do in the course of this campaign and in my time as sheriff. And in terms of the rap on me, as the caller was suggested, I've made mistakes, and those have been really high profile, and our family was turned inside out. But it shows to the length that others will go to try to brand me or try to put a narrative on me to try to win their point. For when the mayor, when he called me a wife beater, so that he would embellish and then try to stick a kind of, moniker on me, a kind of brand on me. I mean, that was crushing. But this is the same mayor who told me face to face, long before that I was elected sheriff, when I was on the board of supervisors, that he wasn't going to run for mayor and that he would be an interim mayor. So our relationship, goes back some time.
Wow.
Yeah, it definitely does seem like there's something something personal Ed Lee has against you or something, because the way he's attacked you has been so disproportionate to anything. And
well, it's not accurate, and
Right.
and it's just I think whatever the angle is, it always exceeds. I think it always exceeds what's in front of you, and that just, to me, it's not about me. It's a tactic they'll use, I think, on anybody in order to vanquish, whether it's dissent or vanquish what they perceive to be opponents or people who are not like them. And I think that's just a tactic.
Yes,
I don't
I do.
view that. I don't personalize that. I just know that in this blood sport of politics and the way that they operate, they're operating out of a realm that I just don't think San Francisco has seen before or is not fully understanding.
Right. I agree. Let me say this. You've probably heard this term before.
you should.
That term is Mayor Lee probably says, "I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot the deputy." And I think that's what Mayor Lee was trying to do. And it's a term that's used. There's a song out, "I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot the deputy." And that deputy might be somebody that might be running against you.
Well, I think that there's an inside play altogether, but
Yes,
but
I think so.
but I'm not so focused on that. They have whatever their designs are.
Yes.
My line in the sand when I ran in 2011, and now more the reason why I run again, and this is what Mike Hennessy, who was sheriff for 32 years, who supported me in 2011, who supports me in 2015 now for re-election. This is what he told me, shared by what then Sheriff Richard Hungisco told him, that what makes a sheriff's department really so vital in the schematic of our local democracy is that in every county, sheriffs are elected in the United States, police chiefs are appointed. And that you really, if it matters to you, and I think it does to a city like San Francisco, that you really want to protect the constitutional independence of the sheriff's department. We're not subjugated. We're not subordinated to the police department or to the chief executive, meaning the mayor. We're an independent peer that is a partner to all the other government agencies with both elected heads and appointed heads. But what I've noticed over the years is this kind of chipping away by the SFPD or by those in City Hall who want to subordinate the Sheriff's Department to other institutions. And I think that that's really dangerous, really, really dangerous. And so unless that there's going to be an actual electoral fusion of both departments, and some cities and counties go through that, San Francisco would never, then the next best thing is to really just kind of reduce or diminish the influence of the sheriff and the sheriff's department. And in the few months that I wasn't serving as sheriff early on in my term, I could see where there was this really well-engineered plan to just kind of constrict the sheriff's department from its reach that was made famous by Mike Hennessy. And when I came back, I immediately went to work to turn on our operation.
Wow. Now,
I'm glad that you brought up the point about Sheriff Mike Hennessy, because he had a very long and wonderful legacy of 32 years. He endorsed you then, he's endorsing you now, and I just want to dispel any notion that people might have that Vicki Hennessy, who is the opponent, is any relation to him. So let's just make that very clear, that Sheriff Mike Hennessy is supporting Ross Mercorini for his reelection. For me having been, or us having been your constituents in District 5, and we know what public safety issues were going on at the time, and you were so effective at reducing the homicide rate and so effective at reducing the violent crime in our community. And now as sheriff, you have a chance to expand that citywide and strengthen and add programs that are there to help people not recidivate. Can you talk about, and there's so much stuff in the news like every other day about this program and that program, and I would like you to tell our viewers about some of the programs that you're either expanding or develop or have implemented.
I do, but I want to put in context a recent experience that both you and I had, because I saw you a couple nights ago in District 5. There were some political events happening in the evening, and there was one at the Madrone Lounge off Divisadero where there was this kind of District 5 Democratic Club and all these other sort of clubs that were celebrating their power. And I was reminding folks who have a short-term memory, especially for the new population who's not familiar with it, that Divisadero was my comeback kid story in many ways when I was a supervisor. But in order to make that the comeback kid, it was Divisadero moving east was completely enveloped in one of the highest homicide rates in the entire city for years. And what you just, remarked, I would go in any hour of the day, because the killings were getting even more brazen, and see just how the city was doing nothing. The community was just resigned to accepting the norm that that's just the way it is. And I just would zero in on it and wouldn't let anybody off the hook that this couldn't be allowed. And then once we were able to calm it down, we were able then to invest heavily in Divisadero and in the Fillmore, by the way, which I see imploding with the closure of Yoshi's and then its successor. So it worries me that in that really 7-year period where we were able to bolster and elevate, and on Divisadero, they had more black-owned businesses on Divisadero than Fillmore did.
That's right.
We were able to put more mom-and-pop black-owned businesses there with the startup that we were able to initiate. So it was nice to see it the other night. And then I guess every politician who moves on, gets to reflect, wow, if they only knew what this was like way back when, right? And so part of those programs that you're asking me about were attached to similar questions, because our district, we had the second largest population of public housing in District 5. Me and my family lived in the Fillmore on Webster Street in Western Addition. And it was always concerning me that people that were coming out of the jail system, that were coming back to the communities in which they come from, weren't coming back into a service-rich area, and that if the goal is to not repeat in going back in the system, then the question of housing and job skill performance, vocational training, reintegration with family, I didn't see any of that happening. And so as a supervisor, I started I furthered my relationship with people like Mike Hennessy and other leaders early on in my career to talk about how we really make programs more durable from in custody to post custody directly in the community. And I fought like hard during even the most recession years to get add-back dollars, which we were successful, and instituting programs right in the community. And I've carried that complete philosophy forward as sheriff in a really magnified way,
Yeah, that's great.
And give
ahead.
us some details on some of these programs, because
Well, we just instituted, for example, and I was really honored. Last Friday, a week ago last Friday, I was the keynote at San Quentin's graduation.
wow.
They have a junior college inside San Quentin, and I was the keynote there. The staff and the inmates are familiar with our work in San Francisco as a sheriff, and they asked me to come and preside over their graduation, which was a real honor. But it was the same day that on the front cover of the Examiner, there was a wonderful picture of 3 women from our jail, and the cover of the Examiner said Unlocking Potential, because we just are now instituting credited courses from City College inside our jail system. And I think City College, because it also has an enrollment problem and we've got a captive audience, we can help them. But yet we also set it up so that if you leave custody, which I hope one does, but may not finish what they started with us in their academic pursuit, we've now set it up with City College and with their probation, the adult probation department, to successfully complete probation if they also complete, their college work too. So we're staying accountable. We're keeping people accountable on the track that you want people to stay on the track. And that means that it's no longer the system of passing a baton like a relay race when you go to the next runner. When somebody goes through our custody and then leaves us, we now stay attached as much as we possibly can, so that we're shadowing folks in the most positive way so that they don't come back. And the results are that we have some of the most reduced recidivism rates out of any county system per capita in the United States, and we're getting recognized and awarded for that.
Wow. What's the reward for that?
Well, over a couple months ago, one recognition is from Harvard University. Every 2 years, they put out a government innovation award from their Kennedy School because of a brainchild that my predecessor, Mike Hennessy, started called the Five Keys Charter High School. And then under our administration, we've really been elevating its reach. And Harvard has taken notice about the correlation between people that are in custody with us that are less likely to return back to the criminal justice system, and the recidivism rates are significantly lower, and they're more emboldened, enabled to stay out of jail based on what they learn with us, getting a diploma, moving on. That Harvard considers hundreds of applicants around the country, and they narrowed it down to 5 finalists, and we were one of the 5, and the only law enforcement agency in the nation. And we'll know soon about who they pick.
Wow.
But it was really, so I had to go back and I had to present to a very distinguished panel like Bobby Kennedy's daughter and other dignitaries at Harvard, me and the ED of our high school, and I think the results are self-evident, and I think they see that.
Cool. Let me give the telephone number out. 415-861-6648. You can call us and ask us some questions or ask the sheriff any kind of questions you'd like. So we're letting you know you can call in. Go
So,
ahead.
and I have a question, because this is Union Buzz, and we're going to talk about like some labor stuff, or from that perspective.
Please.
So, now that the jails are undercrowded, and we're very proud of you for that, and proud of our city that we can say that we have an undercrowded jail system. You've found other duties for the deputies so that they're not laid off, and you have ideas of more things of expanding their duties?
Well, first of all, I don't believe in the layoffs because I think that we're understaffed, believe it or not. There isn't I think it's a logical conclusion to think that with a lower jail population, that means you need lower staff. But there's plenty of needs in the sheriff's department because we're a full range law enforcement, public safety department that we just have never been caught up in our staffing. But I do propose to the mayor and the board of supervisors and the police department that there's a number of duties that the police perform that I think we can perform as well, if not better, and save taxpayers money, because the cost ratio of a deputy compared to a SFPD officer is a difference of about 23%. And it's a taxpayer savings as well, too. So things like station transfer units, which has been tried and conducted in the sheriff's department and done well by our staff, where instead of the police bringing in and booking somebody that they arrest, we'll do it for them by going to the 10 district stations. One of the areas that I know that the police would love some relief from, and we're willing to help, because I've been bolstering our staff at San Francisco General Hospital, is sitting and essentially escorting somebody and staying with them, sitting with them while they're at SF General. And that is hours of significant overtime. Before you book somebody in and they require some kind of mental or physical attention at hospital, it requires 2 police officers. Well, we already have a built-in force at SF General. So we can provide, I think, that assistance and then allow the police to redirect their attention towards more pressing community needs. And there's much more we can do. Frankly, like in District 5, the example with Divisadero, I like to see deputy sheriffs walk beats. I like them to ride Muni. If they got a problem at Treasure Island, I like us to assist with that. I think the city should get a little more creative about how to mesh, in terms of where the police might feel stress due to a lack of staffing, that maybe the sheriffs can assist, in ways that they're just not. But by front loading, the way that they're front loading 400 new police officers, and not at the same time equalize the debate about, well, does that also mean our jail population is going to go up? I think was a real miss for the Board of Supervisors not to have that conversation.
Wow. So, how has these innovations in the sheriff's department sat with the mayor? Have you brought those to the mayor?
I haven't met the mayor seriously, I haven't met him or talked to him in over 3 years. He won't meet with me. And the first letter of communication that I have received was 2 weeks ago, approximately, in result of the Pier 14 killing, the tragedy that I know that we're all very saddened by. Yeah. But he and I have a debate about the city's interpretation of the immigration sanctuary city due process for all policy. And it was a 2-sentence note. He's never really ever in the last 3 years, but I've written him a number of letters, and the number of the letters that I've written him that have gone unreplied is about our programs and about, I think, the need and how we advance San Francisco. And they range quite a bit. In particular, one that I've written to him, or 2 themes I've written to him more than twice about, is people suffering with mental illness. I think the city has no plan on dealing with people who suffer with mental illness, psychiatric conditions.
I agree with that.
And it's, I think, well exhibited on the streets of San Francisco.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think because of the lack of a plan, the jails become a default treatment center. And really, we're the largest mental health hospital now in the city. Nobody wants to admit it, but that is the truth. And I've been telling the mayor that we really need a different approach than just thinking we're triaging people when they come into us, pre-trial mostly, and then thinking that they're going to be okay again without any correspondent services when they get out of the jail system to deal with their psychiatric or deal with their substance abuse issues in a more complex and sophisticated way. The other issue is evictions. We have the only county in the state of California, out of 58 counties, we have something called the Eviction Assistance Unit. And it's a little bit of a real fine pirouette because all sheriffs in the United States have to fulfill a court order by executing an eviction. But I like us to be a little bit different, that without violating a court order, but at the same time asking ourselves, are we exacerbating a public safety problem by making somebody homeless? Like just recently, an 87-year-old woman was going to be evicted. Our deputies were, they got the writ, and routinely they just move forward on it. I told them, hold down, stand down. And that this eviction assistance unit, which gets no funding, and the mayor's denied us 3 years in a row for funding of it, we're essentially turning our, proverbial couch upside down to see the change that's lost in it, to pay with existing resources our ability to find people housing. There's no sheriff's department set up to do this. That's not in a charter. That nobody has passed any law to do that. But we're the agency of last resort in San Francisco. When time an order comes to us for eviction, consider it done. But in 2014, there were over 2,000 eviction orders, and this group, in our intervention, occurred for over 500 people in San Francisco out of that 2,000.
So you wait. Let me understand. You got housing for 500 people after
Well-
they were evicted?
No, but we certainly tried.
Oh, okay. All right, good.
Yeah, in a
That-
very
that-
tight housing market when there doesn't
Right.
seem to be anything available for anybody.
Right.
Well, it depends on who has the wherewithal. My concern is for vulnerable populations, the elderly, families with children who are essentially destitute and they have nowhere else to go, people who are ill, catastrophically ill, people just don't have the ability, There are people who have co-occurring disorders of substance abuse or some form of mental illness, and just taking them to San Francisco General Hospital for a 72-hour evaluation, which our deputies do all the time in the course of an eviction, I don't think that's entirely the right track. And I think we need to consider maybe another approach. And our eviction assistance unit, I think, does just as much of a benefit, a service to the property owners and the landlord associations as it does to the tenant organizations. And I think they're all missing, the value of what this group is. And see, this is where I think that a sheriff's department in San Francisco demonstrates what it means to be progressive. It's not a left or right thing. It's about really being out in front, dealing with the problems that are confronting San Francisco.
And that's a major problem, the evictions and the housing situation. I want to, before we move on too far away from the topic, I want you to go back a little bit to the Pier 14 killing and what happened with that, because I think a lot of misinformation has gone out. People don't understand the complexity of Sanctuary City and the laws and the rules that apply, and I believe even the Constitution, there's been a constitutional decision.
Yeah.
So could you explain that
It
to
is
the public,
complex,
please?
and San Francisco is not alone. There's about 300 cities that have similar laws, but San Francisco is a leader in the nation. It's not just with the Sanctuary City. It's the law that the board passed and the mayor signed in 2013, Mayor Lee signed in 2013, which really upped the strength of a sanctuary city, and that's called the Due Process for All law. And essentially, it prescribes that we limit our contact with the Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement. And that limit of contact centers on detentions, so that when ICE says we want you to detain somebody, then they only want us to do it for people who have been convicted of a violent felony. And then, as it relates to the Pier 14 killing, which has nothing to do with the Due Process for All, because Mr. Lopez Sanchez, who is the alleged killer, when he was brought back on a marijuana offense, a 20-year-old warrant that, frankly, he should have never been brought back on. And so he wouldn't have qualified under the Due Process for All law. But Mayor Lee and Dianne Feinstein and Donald Trump, have all said that I was supposed to call ICE. But where people are being disingenuous is that a call to ICE is the same thing. When you call ICE and say, "Hi, Mr. XYZ is leaving our custody," all that is about is bring the van around and pick them up. And that was the whole thing, about why the city had changed its laws in the first place. Now, I agree, though, that we need, I think, greater legal clarity to make sure that we are enhancing public safety. We are respecting, I think, the immigrant communities and communities that are undocumented, but have a more, I think, honest response about what are we going to do when people that are meriting transfer to ICE and then following or likely for deportation, what that relationship with ICE looks like. And a detainer is not considered a legal instrument. A number of federal courts have weighed in on that. A detainer is unlawful. What is lawful, and I've said this to ICE, I've met with the President Obama's cabinet secretary and his deputy secretary in my own office. I said, our law, like many other cities, says we need a court order or a warrant. Right. A police officer cannot go and search your house in San Francisco without a court order or a warrant. They are violating your constitutional rights. And even though it is seen that somebody is undocumented, or there's an immigrant, that doesn't at all detract from our constitutional obligation, in my opinion, that says we must honor a process for this person as well as that person in an equalized way. And that's exactly my interpretation of it. So when the mayor and Donald Trump were pounding on my head, I said, listen, neither one of them has the power to waive the Constitution, and I've been holding my ground. It's unfortunate, to say the least, that this tragedy is really spotlighted.
Right.
And it has spotlighted, and I think it's an important spotlight, where the incongruences on local, state, and federal law and immigration. But what I dislike also is elected officials and leaders in San Francisco who project this sort of like affiliation or solidarity with Sanctuary City for all laws. But on the other hand, I see where they're chipping away at what the substance of those laws mean. And they're trying to have it both ways. And what's, I think, exasperating them about me is I'm not letting them off the hook, as they're not letting me.
And now I think we have a call.
Oh, good. We do have a call. let me get the caller. Hold on. Hello.
Oh, we lost the call. Maybe we'll call back if it wasn't going.
Hang up.
And so while we're
I think I ordered a pizza. That might have
oh,
been
is that what
pizza.
it was? Your pizza call? Carl, hang it up. The cameras probably should be on a 3-shot.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to close out by reminding our viewers too that Sanctuary City or Sanctuary Policy is really also about protecting victims and witnesses and the fear they have of law enforcement and government. So the public safety issue, it really is about public safety. And I've heard that even the complaints against employers who are exploiting undocumented workers, now undocumented workers are more reluctant to come forward and report those workplace abuses because they're afraid they'll be deported.
I'm glad you said something. I mean, that really is kind of the modus operandi of why sanctuary cities and then due process for all were invented, because the heavy hand of ICE that my predecessor, Mike Hennessy, had pointed out was that it was creating more of a public safety problem where immigrant communities undocumented couldn't trust government and couldn't trust law enforcement. And with the underreporting of crime and our inability to have a trustworthy relationship to help victims of crime was only subverting overall public safety in the city, which is why I think it's a real dangerous thing for elected officials to profess support of, laws that are very important, but then indelicately, then try to have a debate about, maybe we need to dilute the law a little bit. And that's exactly what's been going on in the press. So really the summing of it is I wrote the mayor back in a 3-page letter and I said, let's you and I go before the Board of Supervisors and have a transparent discussion. Stop having the discussion in empowering Fox News.
Right.
Or, let's just have it in a very adult way, so that we all can learn from this. And I don't think that's happening yet.
No response, right? He's
No
not
response.
taking you up on your invitation.
So let me ask this question quickly. You can quickly answer. So you said that you wrote him a 3-page letter, and this is on top of all the other letters you've written in the past 3 years.
And perfumed Hallmark cards, no.
So let's give me a ballpark. Is it 10 letters, 5 letters, 20 letters?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe a dozen. Maybe 10 to a dozen.
So
I mean, I try to be. I don't want to exaggerate. But I try to be thoughtful on issues that I think are important to the city, not just to us.
And let's make it clear that our sheriff was elected with more votes than Ed Lee received, and he's our elected sheriff. And Ed Lee has no right. His duty is to consult with other department heads, and he has no right to let any personal feelings he has or whatever is going on with him interfere with running the city and the business of the city. And it's so important for the mayor and the sheriff to talk. And as a citizen, a taxpayer, I'm very disappointed, and this isn't good for the future of our city. And we have about just over 10 minutes left, and I want to talk a little bit about your campaign right now. So you are running for re-election. The 4 years have flown by, and hard to believe it's already 2015. But I want to talk a little about your campaign. But I want to start off by asking you about the endorsers besides former retired Sheriff Mike Hennessy.
Yes, and it's such an honor because he was such an impactful, positive, progressive force in the criminal justice system over 3 decades. And to have his endorsement again I think really means a lot. And you were referencing this earlier, and I think people get confused that my opponent might be a relative of his, or there's some linkage there. And it's true. I mean, my opponent worked for him for 25 years, but he endorses me. And I think that that's building on, what we've demonstrated over the last 3.5 years or so since I've been in office, that this is the direction we should be going in advancing San Francisco. And I know it's well known that I had a hard start. I had a bad start in some ways, but I didn't retreat at all or shy away, I think, from my obligation of why I set out to run for sheriff in the first place. And if people can sort of link up the notion, a more deeper notion that as sheriff, I preside over the industry of second chances. I did not expect I could become a poster child for it, but I did not, recede from my obligation and determination to do, I think, the kind of things that people elected me to do. And it's a we. I mean, my administration really has put forth, I think, the kind of templates in trying to lower jail population, trying to devise meaningful alternatives to incarceration, helping people not return to jail, are now becoming recipes that other systems around the state and country are following us. And for the first time, they're actually saying they're following us. Before, they were kind of writing San Francisco off as being a little too hippy-dippy or bohemian. But
Right.
now they're realizing rehabilitation, proper reentry, restorative justice is the way to go. So I think organizations like the Latino Democratic Club, who I've earned their endorsement, I think see the value in that. Most recently, the District 3 Democratic Club. Very honored to get also SEIU 1021 and Hotel Restaurant Workers Local 2 and SEIU Health Workers and UHW, and the Tenants Union.
In the tenants union,
The
that's
tenants
right.
union.
That just happened.
Yeah,
yes.
the tenants union just happened too. And I think in this, whole dynamic of evictions and the fear that's not just, it's certainly well focused on the mission, but I think it's throughout the whole city. But the fear that people are experiencing and feeling and not sure how to event it, about their ability to just stay and hack it in San Francisco, I think is setting the race up my race, the re-election, I think in a very vivid way. There are vivid differences between me and my opponent, but I'm not here to talk about my opponent.
No,
Yeah.
and I just want to say too, there's been a host of individuals who are endorsing you. Too long to ever list here.
Well,
but
Mayor Art Agnos, who's we didn't mention, but he's a longtime mentor of mine, a dear friend.
I understand you slept on this couch for a while.
I did.
Carl.
It's kind of famous.
Okay.
Yeah, but there was I was spare change in that too.
I had to bring it up, huh?
so,
But
and-
he's a good man, and he's actually I think probably one of the most caring former mayors I've ever seen in San Francisco. I mean, the way that he applies himself and gives of himself, towards the betterment of the city long after his political career says something.
and some people like Jane Morrison, and there's too many.
Jane's amazing.
There's too many to name, but I just
Yeah.
really want to make a point that there's many progressives and many feminists and women from all walks of life that are supporting you.
Oh, very true.
And what I love is going through the city, and when I mention your name, the people have this great experience with you. They worked with you before. They worked with you on a campaign. Worked with you professionally in your employment in the past, and it's just like so many people throughout the city know you and appreciate you and think so highly of you. And every day I meet new people like that, and I think that speaks to what you've done in your 30 years here in San
Well, it's a
Francisco.
little bit of a demystification. I mean, it's still when Eliana, my wife, and I, and our family, our son, are at Trader Joe's or out and about and stuff. I mean, people there, we still see the jaw-dropping moments because the narrative was just so hardcore and so mean-spirited that they seem just shocked, that we're together. They actually want to know who this woman is that's with me. And says, that's my wife, Ileana. And like, oh, really? It's just so bizarre. But, we appreciate the encounters and the chance to help update people if they are not aware. And the person that also, that really is coming up, I think, politically is my wife, Ileana. I mean, she's really, I think, in short time, but really catapulted into it, has gotten to know San Francisco politics pretty well. And,
Yes, she has.
and in her own way is getting very involved, and I think she's very skillful at it.
Well, I mean, again, when we first started with you, the interview, we were talking about Ileana and her show, What is the Scandal, which is coming back, and people really have to see it because the content is amazing, but the delivery, her acting, her ability to change characters, the voices she uses, the sound effects, the lighting, everything. It's the most enjoyable one-woman play. I mean, it's amazing. And it also does demystify, and it also does give a reality check, because one thing that was very frustrating for her friends and her supporters was the way she was marginalized and diminished and was not allowed any credibility in her voice. And that's not right. You don't take away a woman's power like that. And she got her power back. She has her voice, and she's getting out there. So you can take my word, you can take our sheriff's word. My husband, he's seen it, but I suggest you go see the play. I have seen it more than once, and I will be going to see it again. It's that good, and I love it more every time I see it. I get more out of it, and I think getting her story out has been vital.
Very good.
It's at the Victoria Theater, by the way.
And we got 415-861-6648. We're talking with Sheriff Mercurini in reference to his campaign to be reelected. We'd like to get you to call in and ask the sheriff any questions you like.
In the last 5 minutes.
In the last 5 minutes of the show, please call in. And this is a special. This is a special show. So San Francisco Commons this is a special show for BAVAC also. So
you want to announce open mic is coming up next.
Oh yeah, I got to do that. Yeah, I'll be doing open mic next. I'll be doing that and talking about Union Buzz and the sheriff here. So call in, give us a call, and okay, Sheriff, we got another question.
Yeah, I think. Well, I don't know if we have another question, but I think we want to kind of let you wrap up about the future.
Well, I think Union Buzz. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I think in Union Buzz, because I think it will come out in the campaign, and people might, not understand what they're hearing a little bit, but. It was really unique to have Sheriff Mike Hennessy be the sheriff consistently elected, 8 terms for 32 years. So a whole generation grew up with the sheriff. Sure. Okay. And I don't think people quite know what it's like to not have a progressive sheriff in San Francisco. That was what the fight was for in 2011 when I was in a very spirited race, and we won then. And then I think what comes into focus, what the race is now in 2015, I really do see philosophically that we will be going backwards if we don't continue on this track. Whether it would be me or somebody else, the track must keep going forward. That is, I think, well credentialed to keep moving us forward in a progressive sheriff way.
No.
And I think the unions that are the deputy sheriff unions and the Police Officers Association had a long time history of opposing Sheriff Mike Hennessy for 32 years, and he hired them all essentially within the department. And so it was no surprise to him, and it was no surprise to me that they didn't support me in 2011, that they wouldn't support me now. Something kind of kicks in where law enforcement likes to have one of their own. Mm-hmm. And that's why that remark I made earlier about constitutional independence really is best supported by an outsider, that sheriff, by somebody who has, I think, the sensitivity, the sensibility, who wants to do everything they can to support the department, but understands where bright lines exist, that they are not, I think, blinded by relationships where they can still be independent and forward-thinking, especially for a law enforcement agency where law enforcement these days in this country, this state, and even our city, has proven to have, I think, some flaws, and that it requires us, to keep improving upon that. And that's why I think it takes a very independent sheriff to do that.
And I think on the vein of unions, it should be known that SEIU 1021 did endorse you because of your strong relationship with the union when you were when you were the supervisor, and I want to say the board of supervisors is actually like the boss of the city workers, and you were always on the side of the workers and always on the side of the union, and that's why you were endorsed, and that speaks very highly of what kind of a boss you are, department head in this case, and then the whole board of supervisors.
Well, but also the wrap is, as I was mentioning earlier about a changing city, the wrap is for somebody like myself, personally and politically and socially, to go through what we went through the last 3 years sets, sort of a handicap on me politically as an elected official.
Exactly.
And it scares people off in some ways because, in a changing town like ours, people get scared in affiliating with somebody who also may cause this sort of radiating wrath by the mayor or people behind the mayor if they support. And I think that reflects a changing city where then, that self-interest really becomes such a difference in whether they're going to survive themselves. I think is more emblematic of how, feeble or transactional City Hall is becoming too, in order to, really please those that are in power or not to piss them off. And whether it's my race or other races or other issues, I think you really see that coming into play.
Yeah,
Well,
that
we're-
is very evident.
we're going to get ready
Yeah.
to sign off,
Yeah, we
so
do.
we want to just thank you so much for coming. We
Right.
have up here the information how to reach the sheriff's campaign, which is www.rossmysheriff.com.
Right.
We hope to have him on at least one more time before the election, and we want to thank you for coming, and thank you to the caller who called in, and
To
this-
callers, it was two.
to the callers, and we want to thank everybody. We want to thank all the staff here.
Yeah, we want to thank Sydney and Andrew for the text for putting this together,
Ann.
and who produces all the producers. She's the producer of the producers, and we'd like to thank them and also thank the sheriff for coming in. We appreciate it, Sheriff.
And we'll be back next
And,
week.
My
she'll be
pleasure.
next.
Thank you.
And should we let the audience know that you might come back, or you have any events happening soon?
We're off the air.
Oh, we are off.
Yeah, 6:52.
Okay, we're off.
Okay.
Is that how it works? Is
Yeah.